Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment Questions and Answers edition. I'm Marina Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman. Ciao, Marina.
Ciao, Richard.
I'm still in Italy.
Come stai?
That's not Italian. Oh, maybe it is. I thought it was Spanish.
Well, don't correct anyone as you're walking around the streets.
I do that in restaurants all the time. Your Italian is not great.
I think you'll find you're speaking Spanish.
I feel bad because Ingrid is fluent. I feel so. I just flounder
what a
in
pleasure.
the background. Yeah, I don't have to say anything.
A true holiday.
Yeah, a true holiday where I do nothing at all.
But you're going to be saying some stuff now, let me tell you. Hit me with a question.
Yes, from Italy to France. And Dan Naylor, thank you, Dan. Dan asks, I've just read an article about Bono's concert film receiving a 7-minute standing ovation at Cannes. All of that sounds absurd to me. What is the history of the long-standing ovation at Cannes? It seems like they do it for every film.
You're totally right. You could eat a croissant and you'd get a standing ovation. They do it for every single film. Actually, what's weird is that like all the trade publications, certainly, the US trade publications all cover it and they all time them slightly differently. And so if you actually have become so bored of the coverage of this 7 minutes meaning something, if you actually go and look at things like Deadline Now and The Hollywood Reporter and Variety, no one is actually there with the stopwatch, I don't think. Otherwise, why all week or last week, have I been reading different accounts of how long each ovation was? But I suppose they're roughly in the right ballpark. They do these close-ups and you see these people clapping. Some of them have been ridiculous. The longest ever is Pan's Labyrinth. That was 22 minutes.
Wow.
Right, that's a fifth of the film's runtime. Sentimental Value this year, I want to say, got 19 minutes. Now, again, it's Elle Fanning, Joachim Trier directed it. That's right up there with the big ones. Okay, so Joker got 8 minutes in 2019. Its sequel, which as we know absolutely fell through the floor as a cinematic endeavour, got 12 and a half minutes. Okay, they don't know, they'll just clap anything. And also, I do find it slightly funny that given the highbrow nature of French cinema and all of its various pretensions, that a sort of light entertainment clapometer is regarded as the measuring instrument of choice as to how good a film is. It does all sound absurd, just as you say, Dan. But funnily enough, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a producer and who has 4 films showing at Cannes this year and said it is so stressful. You know instantly how well a film has done is going to do, whether it's hit where you want it to hit. And I said, but how? What, from the clapping? I don't know, part of it, but it's in the air, it's in a vibe, it's incredibly stressful. The way people are talking about it, the buzz in the town, and bear in mind your movie might not be out for 8 months, and there's not a whole lot you can do after then, which is why, in some ways, lots of producers say, let's not do it at Cannes, but a lot of the directors, of course, want to say, I want it to be Cannes or Venice. Cannes is sort of top of the tree in where they want to put it, and a lot of producers think, is it really worth that? Is that risk and reward thing? There's something in the air, and to some extent, the applause is part of it. So even though it's ridiculous, it does sort of weirdly a small part of what matters in a very, very kind of tetchy and nervy and stressful week for producers.
I'd hate it because I always look at the end time of a film whenever I go to the cinema. If I've got to add 22 minutes to that, no thanks. But also, I always feel self-conscious doing a standing ovation if you're in a theatre or something, because when I'm sat down, I always sit on the outside of a row. I always do. Firstly, it's a bit more legroom, but secondly, you don't really have people behind you. But sometimes you have to sit with people behind you, and then the whole way through the theatre, I'm feeling incredibly guilty because I'm sitting in front of someone. And then if people are doing standing ovation, I have to stand up in front of someone. That's even worse. I'm doubling my height of it.
You could do a sitting ovation and it would mean the same.
Sometimes I do, but if you're ever a theatre performer and you see me sitting down, it's only because there's someone short behind me and I want them to be able to see the curtain call.
But also, if you did a standing ovation, then just by sheer, commanding virtue of your height, we'd all be taking our lead off you as to when to sit down for no other reason than I'll just do what Richard's doing. I mean, I do that quite a lot anyway. But I would really be just waiting for you. You'd be like the host picking up the knife and fork first or something. Oh, I can see we can all start. Naturally, we'd gravitate towards you as the ovation leader. Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of pressure for you. Don't ever go to Cannes. You'd hate it anyway.
Oh yeah, I would never. Don't worry about that. You'll never see me in Cannes, I don't think.
Now, this next one is an absolutely lovely question, and it's from Ellie Ashworth. She says, I'm a big reader and I'm turning 18 in a couple of months. I was wondering, what 3 books do you recommend I should read before I turn 18 or when I turn 18?
Such a great question, isn't it? Because you immediately think, what should I read before 18? And you think, okay, I'm 18 now. What am I ready for? I love this. Eddie, thank you so much. Firstly, happy birthday for when it happens. Pre-18, I've got a few suggestions. I suspect you might have a few suggestions as well. I thought The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark would be a great book to read before you're 18, because it's about that time of life, and it's from a different age, but actually all the messages of it resonate.
Yeah, I reread it, I think, last summer, and it was even sort of, yes, it's incredibly modern and resonant in terms of that.
And a great thing to read when you're 17 as well, I would say, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Have you got one?
Well, I would say, can I talk about types of books? When I was 18, I went to a girls' school, and there were lots of great readers, and I don't want to denigrate any of the types of books people were reading, but I remember, coming out of that, and we didn't read sort of big historical biographies. We didn't read things like that. And in a funny kind of way, I think we didn't think that they were for us, and that, this is a long time ago, perhaps they were for people's brothers or for men in general. And I remember coming close to lots of clever boys when I was about 18 and thinking, but they've read all these things. And I remember thinking, well, why shouldn't I? Why should I not start reading books about, doesn't have to be the great men of history, many of the great women of history. And I started reading quite kind of challenging historical books at that age, because I thought, otherwise, if I don't do it now, then I'm just sort of saying this stuff isn't for me. And I think that's rubbish. I can't think of all the interesting ones I've read over the time. I remember reading a brilliant Frida Kahlo one. Funnily enough, I was just asking Dominic Sandbrook for brilliant books about ancient Egypt, and he said, we know so little about the period, but there is a really good, brilliantly written biography of Cleopatra by Stacey Schiff. So I've bought that now, but that's the sort of thing I would have enjoyed reading when I was 18. Just thinking, you have to get your eye in a weird way, because they do seem kind of weighty and hard and whatever. But once you get through that, one of my recommendations is for types of books that you instinctively feel, oh, maybe they're not for me. Just do the opposite. Do the opposite.
Can I say one thing about reading when you're 17 that's tricky, is because you're still at school and you are still having to learn things and being tested on those things. And it gives you a certain attitude towards what it is that you read, which is this improving me in some way? What do I get out of this? And actually, when you get older, you completely lose that and you just read for pleasure, and you read because you want to learn things. And the younger you can think, I can read a book about Cleopatra or Frida Kahlo just because I want to enrich myself.
Yeah, I'm remembering what the first historical biography that I read was Roy Jenkins' one on Winston Churchill. It's a single volume and it's brilliant.
Jenkins on Churchill. She is the perfect woman.
Okay, so I pushed myself through that. It was hard. It's hard, but it's also brilliantly written, by the way, I have to say, because it was different sorts of things to what I'd been reading before. But now I can read those things. They're not just for boys. They're not just for other people. And I think that a lot of that has changed.
Oh, great. Eddie's thinking, now I have to read a 500-page
No,
Roy
she's not
Jenkins
thinking that,
biography.
and I knew you'd say that. But you know what? Women have often felt excluded out of that type of reading. And my point is, you're not excluded out of any type of reading, and you're not excluded from anything that you feel like, oh, I don't think that's meant for me. Just read it, honestly. And you're beginning your swashbuckling adventures where, as you say, Richard, no one tells you what to read anymore.
I think you have to read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think you probably have to. I think you certainly have to acquaint yourself with Douglas Adams before you're 18 and what it is that he does, while your mind is still flexible enough to kind of work out what it is he's doing and work out the worlds that he's teaching you about. A great funny book. If you've not read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy before 18, I would think that would be mandatory.
I agree. I'm doing another category now, but I don't know if you have any idea of what you want to do, Ellie. I certainly had absolutely no idea, and I continue to have no idea for a very long time after the age of 18. Having said that, I knew what I liked reading about, so I loved reading books about, entertainment and musicians and movies and things I was never going to do. I knew I didn't want to direct a movie, and I knew I didn't want to be a rock musician, but I read a lot about that sort of thing. And it's funny now, like everything, it makes sense in retrospect. Here I am every week talking about those things, but I started reading about all those things. That was when you could start reading things and just think, I'm interested in this. And when I went to university when I was 18, I remember thinking, God, I can get any book up now, any book at all, because I had access to a library with everything. Now we just call it the internet. But anyway, honestly, would call up books about things like silversmithing or mazes or Renaissance gardens or whatever. And a huge amount of time, yes, I would just look at the pictures, but you could get anything. And so just going on a tour and thinking, oh, hang on, now that's made me think I want to know about that. And now I want to know that. And now I want to know what Hong Kong looked like in the 1930s. And you could do all of those things. So I suppose, traveled in a library then. And that was really interesting. Now you can do that a lot more easily online. And I think that's the same. But nonetheless, going on one of those journeys that just, there's always another thing that takes you somewhere else. Read books about things, and funnily enough, they may come in useful right when you're as old as me.
So what you're saying is, don't read the books you're being told to read. I'll give my third one to read before you're 18. I'll give it a choice. Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. I'm sure you've read it. If you've not, absolutely you have to cross that off the list. She's a genius. Or if you've not read Agatha Christie, it's a perfect time to start. It's pre-18. Maybe start with And Then There Were None, something like that. So I would say Muriel Spark, Douglas Adams, Mallory Blackman / Agatha Christie are my three. And you're saying Roy Jenkins' biography of Churchill, something about Renaissance gardens. And what's your third one? Highway Code?
I love that you think that's what I've been saying. I'm so sorry that's all you heard. I'm so sorry. It must be nice. It must be nice not to think that you are limited for certain things. But I wanted to look outwards. I'm now going to recommend a specific book I read when I was 18 called Lemprière's Dictionary, and it's by a guy called Lawrence Norfolk. And I remember just honestly picking it up off a bookshop table because it must have just come out. It was such an extraordinary kind of weird, malarial, amazing novelistic adventure set in historical France. It was so crazy, and I thought he had the most amazing mind. And I was like fascinated to see where it went. I have no idea how it was reviewed, whether people loved it, but it made such a huge impression on me at that age.
What was the name again?
Lawrence Norfolk. It's called Lemprière's Dictionary.
I'm going to suggest perfect book to read after you're 18, The Secret History, Donna Tartt.
Oh, yeah.
If you've not read that. So that's a great, because also it's about getting a little bit older, and it's about making your way into the world and something extraordinary happening. And it's just a brilliantly written, beautiful book.
Oh, yeah. All those books, but by that sort of American brat pack fiction writers. Less Than Zero, Bret Easton Ellis.
Yeah.
That was a big one when you're 18.
So I'll also add, because we've given you lots and lots of recommendations there, might be a good time to start Martin Amis and work out if you like him or not. Maybe start with London Fields if you don't like him.
I thought about that. I wonder whether people still feel the same about him. Maybe that was just a generational thing. And whoever the Martin Amis is of now, I don't know. But maybe people just feel like that's Sally Rooney. And
exactly. Also, I'd recommend maybe Slaughterhouse-Five, or any Kurt Vonnegut if you've not read him, and also Great Gatsby, because I think it speaks to our time. I know those are quite cliched choices. Now I feel guilty because yours are also brilliantly esoteric and smart.
Mine are just weird. They're not even proper choices, as usual, but they were just areas that I became interested in.
But the key thing I would say is Happy Birthday, Ellie.
Yeah,
and
Happy Birthday, Ellie.
Yeah, and your message, which is read what people wouldn't expect you to read, is a very beautiful one. That took longer than we expected, I think. Shall we go to a break?
I'm so sorry. Yes, let's go to a break. This podcast is brought to you by Sky, where you can watch season 3 of And Just Like That, the next chapter in the Sex and the City story.
What is Carrie Bradshaw up to now, Marina?
Well, she has said goodbye to her beloved apartment. She's moved into a townhouse in Gramercy Park. New chapter, new book. She is writing, you'll love this, she's writing romantasy, Richard. Yes, that genre we have already pretended to understand for this podcast.
Just romance and fantasy. Listen, it's what I'm doing next. The Thursday Romantasy Club.
Now, Miranda's adjusting to post-Shay life. Charlotte is navigating family life while reliving her 30s alongside younger colleagues. And Carrie, she is still catastrophically allergic to stability, but trying. Watch the brand new season of And Just Like That, available 30th of May on Sky. Welcome back, everybody. Now, I'm going to try and be much more formatted in the second half. And speaking of great formats, can we talk about Race Across the World? Because Kate Emery has sent in a brilliant question. Are there people in the production team dedicated to mapping the route each season of Race Across the World? And do they themselves have to try it out before the contestants?
Thank you, Kate. Yes, it's a very, very long, drawn-out process. As you know, the new series is China, that sort of area. So the first thing they'll do is what we would do if we were going on holiday, which is you research every route around every bit of China. You're looking for the places you'd like to visit. You start making inquiries as to whether that's somewhere you could visit. You look into whether there's issues with visas and what have you. So you start very, very, very basically. You then start drawing up kind of possible routes. because you know how many episodes you got, you know how many contestants you got, you know exactly how the show is going to work. Done it before. So you start thinking, well, we definitely want to be in Beijing. We definitely want to go to Shanghai. Could we go to Nanjing? Where are we going to cross the border? Where is there an interesting selection of transport, where you have to get a ferry to an island, or do you get a train to the ferry? Just ways that you can mix up the contestants and give them options. So you'll do that. You draw a huge Bible. By the way, this is Tim Harcourt, who's the exec on Race Across the World, has very kindly answered all sorts of Race Across the World questions for us. And he says, at this stage, you've got these detailed maps, possible routes, possible types of transport. It's always important that there's 2 or 3 different ways to reach a destination. That's the key. If there's like one boat or one train that covers a whole leg, then it's not of interest. So then Tim says they send out a team. So 2 people will go out and stress test the routes. And those 2 people, one of them has access to what the trains are, what the ferries are, different ways of traveling in different countries, different ways of traveling in different environments. The other person has none of it. Now, the person who has the information is not allowed to tell the other person any of it. So it's there because, as a producer would know, they know essentially what they're trying to achieve. But the other person is absolutely seeing the whole thing blind. It throws up completely new ideas and completely new routes that would not have occurred to them as well. So you get the best of both worlds. They then come back with lots of footage and all sorts of things as well, report back on exactly what it is they've done, exactly what happened, that actually this interchange we thought where you can get a coach and then there's a train, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not there anymore. It's closed down for repairs. Or you go there and actually it's a 3-day delay. So we thought it was a 8-hour delay. It's a 3-day delay. So you get all of that information. And Tim says everyone wants to get the jobs of being the people who stress test the routes. They go, oh my God, that sounds like the most fun. It's like doing the show yourself, but without any pressure. And he says, all of them come back and go, oh my God, that's the hardest thing I ever did. That was like virtually impossible. But when they get back, you've got all the information that you've done in the UK, you've got all the information you've got on the road as well. And then those people are often join the production crew and will be going on those routes themselves anyway. So it just means that every single thing has been stress tested in every possible way. We had another question, actually, someone was asking him about what happens when contestants get knocked out. Do they go straight home? And I thought that was interesting as well, because not only is it the contestants, it's the people who are following them, it's their production crew. Essentially, and sometimes they just don't even reach a checkpoint. They're given a couple of days to decompress, to enjoy themselves, to, wherever they are. And then, they go straight home. But the crew are then sent out to bolster the other crews who are following the other contestants. Because as you see, as you get towards the end of that show, some of the drone shots you're doing, some of the big location stuff you're doing is so technical and so involved. Actually, the more people you can get, the more producer directors you get who are all in the same place, the better. But it's one of those jobs, I think, if you wanted to work in television, that feels like the absolute dream because you're traveling the world. But it is absolute graft from start to finish, and lovely that you've got this huge hit show, so it feels like you're doing something that people are loving and people are watching. But my God, in the same way that the contestants really go through it, which is why we love that show so much, the crew really goes through it as well. But I love the fact that you send out 2 people, one of them knows everything, the other one knows nothing, and the person who knows everything is not allowed to tell you anything.
That's incredible. How do you think we'd do if we were contestants on this?
Contestants?
Yeah.
Oh, terribly. Of all the shows in the world, I would hate to be on that show so much, because the thing that would drive me mad is like the 15-hour coach journeys.
Yeah.
And you know full well that no one's seeing that. All anyone's seeing is you being stressed just beforehand because you can't find a bus station. And then you've been crotchety afterwards because you've had no sleep for 15 hours on a Chinese bus. And when you're watching it, you go, oh, hold on. All people are seeing is me being stressed and then annoyed. And they didn't see the 15 hours where I literally was just lost my mind with boredom, and we had to stop 15 times, and there was no toilets. No one saw any of that, so they just go, that guy's a bit moody, isn't it? And I'd be like, yeah, you'd be moody if you just had to sit next to Marina for 15 hours on a bus, and she's got loads of legroom and I've got none. I'm getting annoyed about the legroom even now.
I think we'd hear a lot about your legroom, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but none of it would make the edit.
I'd love it.
Would you?
Yeah. I'd love to do it, but I don't sleep anyway. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
I don't sleep, but I know that of course, I'm not stupid enough to think I wouldn't be kind of exposed for moments of crotchetiness. But I would love the adventure, I must say.
You would be an amazing team with your husband. That would be because you have very, very complementary skill sets. and one of you would be carrying the team at any given time. You're looking like he has no skill set to offer you.
No, Kieran would be really good on it.
Yeah.
He's really practical on things like that, particularly on travel.
Yeah.
But I think I could bring something. I would love to do
vibes.
it. Yeah, vibes.
You'd bring the vibes. I'm sure they'd have you on the celebrity one.
He has driven me across America 3 times now, and I brought incredible vibes in the passenger seat. Like, it was a huge, I was basically number one for vibes.
Marina very much on vibes and snacks.
Our friends at Sky, proud partners of The Rest is Entertainment, have made finding something to watch as easy as saying what you're in the mood for.
Say comedy, true crime, whatever you like into your remote, and Sky will bring up a range of shows and movies from all of your apps and channels in an instant.
Now, this month we're all about dramas.
Can I, talking about great dramas, talk about Poker Face
on Sky TV?
I know I've talked on the podcast before about how much I love it. It is back for a new series. It is as brilliant as the previous one as well. If you've not seen the first one, go right back and watch it. If you love Columbo, you'll absolutely love this show. It's even got the same font and things. Natasha Lyonne, great guest stars, really lovely plots, beautifully shot. Every single episode, a brand new story in a brand new world, and just that absolute classic, crime of the week type show. Which
she's an amazing central character. She's terrific. She can tell if anyone is lying. Is the sort of central shtick.
Yeah, but they have such fun with that. It's not just like, oh, you did it. It's always it leads her into as much trouble as it does crime solving. But I love Poker Face. Season 1 and season 2 is out now as well. Really recommend that.
Can I just say, I'm pushing people back to this. If you didn't watch on the BBC Ludwig the first time round, go back, because I have recently been going back because I'm too stupid to work out all the little Easter eggs and puzzles, and I honestly didn't notice in the first time round. But by the way, the characters are so good. David Mitchell and Anna Maxwell Martin is absolutely brilliant. But when I'd finished watching it, everyone went, "Oh, did you really enjoy all those little Easter eggs and puzzles? If you really like crosswords and stuff." I was like, "Sorry, what?" He is a crossword setter. I hadn't actually seen any of them. So I've now gone back with the aid of the internet. And I have to say, it's a very enriching watch again. And by the way, it was such a massive hit, and it's coming back, and it's going to be even better. But yeah, it really helps to go back and try and understand some of the puzzles if you weren't aware of them occurring the first time round.
Yes, and my lovely friend Ammon Connor, who was the first question editor on House of Games, still does it now, was one of the puzzle consultants on it. So creates lots of the puzzles. He used to be like the head of questions on Only Connect as well. He did, do you know the Inside Number 9 episode with the crossword?
Yes.
He did that crossword. So he's like the go-to puzzle guy.
Anyway, if you've heard something you fancy there, add it to your own playlist on Sky. It's a simple way to keep all of your favourites in one place. And with Gangs of London and The Last of Us, it's a strong lineup there already.
Right, come on, ask me one.
Okay, I have a question for you from David Adam. I was looking through some old DVDs at my local library, and I picked up the classic that is Running Man and came across what I think might be one of the best taglines ever. It is the year 2019. The Running Man is a deadly game no one has ever survived. But Schwarzenegger has yet to play. A few questions, if I may. Do you both have a favourite tagline? How important do you think they are? In the streaming age, has their importance been lost? What has perhaps replaced them?
Okay, I could do a podcast series on this. I love this. First of all, I love that tag. That's interesting, that tagline, isn't it? Because by that stage, we know that Schwarzenegger's become absolutely huge as an action star, but they're using his name rather than the character's name, which is really, there's lots of interesting things about that. Basically, a tagline is a piece of copywriting. I've always been fascinated by advertising copywriting from the sort of golden age. Movie advertising copywriting got to stay the same, really, because you were still doing the same thing. And it mainly came off movie posters. It's a key part of the visual art, really, I suppose you would say. Probably the greatest one maybe is Alien. In space, no one can hear you scream. Ridley Scott, who directed Alien, he was an ad man, and so he would have really cared about that. But do you know who came up? It's really interesting, the story of this. Barbara Gibbs.
It's usually Salman Rushdie.
Okay, it isn't Salman Rushdie in this case. Her husband, Barbara Gibbs' husband, whose name I'm afraid is lost to me, but he was designing the poster art for it. And she had 5 kids. She's in the car with 4 of them one night, and she was going along Riverside Drive in New York, and she saw the sort of black water of the river, and she thought, God, space must be so lonely. And she said, what about this for that movie that Dad's doing the art for? And her teenage daughter thought it was really good. It does that key thing where it creates a vibe. It's so intriguing. You know exactly what the vibe is, but it's no spoilers. It's nothing, it's absolutely brilliant. It's created a whole mood, and it's done it with such economy of words. I mean, it's so few words.
It tells you immediately it's sci-fi and it's psychological horror, just without, everyone understands it.
But it pulls you in, and that's what great advertising copywriting does. And she became a copywriter for movies off the back of that.
No way.
And then there are certain ones that I just sort of remember, and they're so tied in with the visual arts of the poster. So I'm thinking of like really old ones, like I don't know if you've ever seen Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Sister, Sister, Oh So Fair, Why Is There Blood All Over Her Hair? So there are things like that. But then, I don't know, those are old ones. Obviously, Jaws, You'll Never Go in the Water Again, which turned out to be prophetic. And then ones for bad movies like Jaws 2, Just When You Thought It Was Safe to Go Back in the Water. That's brilliant. A lot of the horror is great. The Fly, Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid.
That's a good one.
What are my other favourites? Mean Streets, You Don't Make Up for Your Sins in Church, You Do It in the Streets. And that's actually the first line that you hear in the movie in the black before it even comes up. The movie is, You don't make up for your sins in church, you do it in the streets, you do it at home, the rest is bullshit, and you know it. And it's like a bad dream Harvey Keitel's character's having. So it's really, I love that. Bonnie and Clyde, this tells you the whole story. I mean, they're young, they're in love, and they kill people. What's that one? God, hang on, I've got to actually look up the name of this film. I've never seen this film, and every time I think of the tagline, it makes me laugh, and I want to see the film. And by the way, I'm not the only one who's recognised it. Unwittingly, he trained a dolphin to kill the President of the United States.
Oh, yes.
It's a George C. Scott film called Day of the Dolphin. It's Day of the Jackal, but it's with a really cute little porpoise. So there's lots of those ones. I am going to answer your question as to why we don't see them so much more. The answer to that is that so much now is the trailers, and you see the trailers online, you see all the places. The visual arts, the posters, the print basically is just not what it was. So you don't see those still images, which had to have a great line that grabbed you. There's one that I really like for a terrible, terrible movie, which is called Central Intelligence with The Rock and Kevin Hart. It says, saving the world takes a little heart and a big Johnson. Come on.
Yeah,
okay.
that's good.
The Social Network was good. You don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies.
That's good.
Do you remember that movie Gross Point Blank? Every hitman deserves a second shot.
Oh, that's good as well.
Then there are the sort of ones that everyone remembers. Apollo 13, Houston, We Have a Problem. There are certain ones that become so iconic. And then there are really bad ones. The script of Harry Met Sally, When Harry Met Sally, is so good. That Nora Ephron script is basically faultless. As far as I'm concerned, it's a perfect movie. But the trailer is, can two friends sleep together and still love each other in the morning?
It's also kind of longer than the film. Come on, guys. Make it snappy.
And then there are sort of funny ones, like the Austin Powers one that said, if you see one film this summer, make it Star Wars. If you see two, make it Austin Powers. That's why you shag me.
I've said before that the follow-up to Mel Brooks' Spaceballs was going to be called Spaceballs 3, The Search for Spaceballs 2.
I mean, there are so many. It's not a completely lost art, but it's a lost art purely because the level of print and still advertising has dwindled massively. You can imagine someone growling in space, no one can hear you scream, but so many of them work really well as a piece of advertising written copy. But yes, I absolutely love them. And there are about 1 million that I didn't include there, so I could go on forever.
Maybe we'll do it another time.
Okay, yeah.
That just also reminded me that Ingrid is currently playing Minnie Driver's sister in a Netflix show.
In that Harlan Coben?
Yeah.
Ooh. Right, having gone on that long about taglines, I think we had better wrap up. If you are a member of our club, which you can join at therestisentertainment.com, we have the second part of our story of Pixar, the animation house, which I'm afraid is going to have to get to John Lasseter's special hugs in this week's episode. But otherwise, we will be back as usual next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. And don't forget, if you listen to this in the morning, the Thursday Murder Club trailer is coming out this afternoon. I don't think it has a tagline, which is a shame. Perhaps I'll think of one for the next trailer.
I'm going to think of one for when we next meet. See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.